here with Derek Mitchell, who is the president of the National Democratic Institute based in Washington, D.C., who's also in the Obama administration, a top Asia security official at the Department of Defense. So, Derek, it's great to be able to speak with you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Well, Derek, we here in Taiwan are very curious about what the incoming Joe Biden administration Asia policy is going to look like. And I know that you're an expert in Asia policy. What can you tell us about what you think of how Joe Biden will deal with China and Taiwan?
Well, first, thank you again for inviting me on. I don't represent the Biden administration. I can't speak for what they're going to do. I'm sure they're putting together their plans right now. But I do know the folks that are leading the effort on Asia. And I can say with confidence that they're very clear-eyed about the issue of Asia, and particularly about the China challenge. They recognize that China has a competitive attitude towards the United States, and that that competition, that competitive attitude creates enormous challenges, and very comprehensive challenges in terms of diplomacy, in terms of economics, in terms of technology, in terms of military. So I think they're going to look at this and address each in turn. I think there is not entirely a discomfort with a hardening of the attitude of the Trump administration, but I think they will moderate the tone a bit and look more to work with allies and not simply to work alone. I think a very important theme we hear from the Biden folks is that the strength of American power globally, our strength and our advantage, is that we have friends and allies. And what we want to do is leverage that in order to take on this comprehensive challenge that we see from China. And the final element of that is they're not going to dismiss the notion of cooperation. There are things like climate change and health issues and terrorism and things like that every country has interest to suppress.
So do you think that it will be different than it was when Obama was in power? Because China has changed.
Yeah, I think there's a general recognition that the world has changed in 4 years. Just since 2016, there are very different conditions around the world. You simply can't turn back the clock to things before. The Obama administration, was very active in building deeper partnerships in Asia. They were the first administration to have a summit with ASEAN, and they engaged in Asia very actively. But I think on China, there will be a reassessment on some of the more cooperative elements and whether that's really where the emphasis ought to be, or focus more on what China has been very clear about, which is their competitive interest towards the United States, and the ways that China is very actively, if quietly, trying to undermine America's position around the world.
Well, what about—
And not just, if I can just say, not just America's position, but also the norms and standards, the values that America cares about around the world, like democracy and like openness and like freedom. And China's doing things that are very carefully about their own interest, but not in the general interest. And I think the U.S. is more alert to this and will be engaging on that front as well.
Well, what about Taiwan? How do you think the Biden administration will deal with its relations with Taiwan?
Taiwan is a perfect example of a place that is consistent with the values of the United States and the values of a more secure and stable world. Taiwan as a beacon of democracy in Asia, as a strong society, as a net grantor of public goods, and how Taiwan has dealt with COVID, how it's not only dealt with it at home, but also helped others in exporting masks and other values. Taiwan is a success story, and I know the Biden administration recognizes that, and that the protection of what makes Taiwan great is very important. But not just as a factor. I think this is very important, not seeing it simply through the lens of China, which is a traditional way that I think even the Trump administration has done. Sees it just simply through the lens of a China challenge. Taiwan in its own right stands on its own for what it contributes to the world and the success that it is. And I think the Biden administration will recognize that and seek to find ways to showcase that and to bring Taiwan out and try to help them have greater standing and greater provision of those public goods to the international community.
So we've seen a lot of increase in support for Taiwan in the U.S. Congress and, of course, throughout the Trump administration. Do you see this continuing, the strength of the ties between U.S. and Taiwan? in the Biden administration?
I, I do. I very much do. I think there's a bipartisan consensus on Taiwan, in Congress, as you say. It runs from left to right. I mean, far left, far. I mean, all the whole gamut, because Taiwan is an obvious good. It's an obvious positive. So I think there will continue to be strong support and strong oversight of the executive. Remember, in the United States, the Congress, they were the ones that passed the Taiwan Relations Act. They have paid special attention to Taiwan for, I could say, 70 years, but certainly in the last 40 years or so. So if the administration strays a little bit, there is always Congress that will oversee and say, we want to make sure that Taiwan is taken care of.
So there have been some congressmen who have come up with acts like the Taiwan Defense Act to get rid of strategic ambiguity. Now, what do you think about that? Do you think that the Biden administration will continue with strategic ambiguity about defending Taiwan, or would they be stronger against any threats from China?
Well, I can't predict what they will do. Strategic ambiguity, I think, to date has worked. I don't think there's any question. I don't think China has any question about America's commitment to the defense of Taiwan under the Taiwan Relations Act, the grave concern that any violence, any aggressive act, that's been stated by successive administrations about the importance of ensuring Taiwan's self-defense capabilities and such. So I suspect that those commitments are as strong as ever, that we will be demonstrating that in our military capabilities, in our statements, in our actions, and that the safety and security of Taiwan will be communicated very, very strongly and consistently to China.
Do you think that there will be a continued sales of U.S. arms to Taiwan?
Yes, again, that's something that's every administration, and in the Obama administration was very strong on providing weapons necessary for self-defense, and I absolutely believe that will continue. Yes.
You think there will be a stronger military presence of the U.S. in the South China Sea?
It depends how you define that, but yes, I do think that was something that was discussed certainly in my time when I was even in the Pentagon. Early in the Obama administration, was a necessity of having a stronger visible presence in Asia and finding ways to have a more flexible presence, to find places where you can put run naval ships through to show that China's growing power is not decisive and that America's commitment to the security of the region is strong as ever. And that gets harder and harder to recognize that as China's power grows. But we're going to need, again, the important part of this is we're going to need partners. The United States can't do this alone. So I think the Quad will be still engaged. And so working with Australia and Japan and India, thinking through how we can do this together, and looking at Vietnam and their interest in securing that area of the world and that area of Asia and South China Sea, and demonstrating that China's unilateral actions to change the status quo and to grab territory and to violate international law will not be accepted. And you remember, it was during the Obama administration that the International Court ruled on the South China Sea issues, and that was supported strongly by the Obama administration.
So Biden has said that he will have allies working together to pressure China or have more leverage. How do you think that will affect China?
Well, they're not going to like it. They don't like to have allies, and they've tried to divide the alliances, and they're going to try to find gaps and try to use their power. I think they're much more comfortable using overt hard power or other coercive power than they might have been 4 years ago or 8 years ago. Xi Jinping is not shy. So they will continue to pursue the Belt and Road Initiative, but continue to quietly tell countries in Asia that the United States is far away and we're on your border and you need to be careful about us and be careful, make your decisions wisely. They've been saying that for years and years. And they will try to put the onus on the United States and make it look like we are the problem rather than our consistent policy. We simply want a peaceful and stable and sovereign Asia where all countries are able to have control of their own futures and not be overrun by a hegemon. That's been our policy since the Cold War. So it's up to China how they want to handle that.
How do you see the Biden administration in the U.S.-China tech war? How do you think he's going to deal with that?
I think that's a very important component of this challenge. And there are people I know going into this administration, I expect to go into the administration, who recognize that the information war, which is part of the tech war, that the integrity of information, the importance of an open space for free expression, to be not to be subject to overweening surveillance, the kind of Orwellian state that China is developing internally in its society is being exported. And it's very important for all of us that not be the norm for the international society and also for nations individually. I think also that the value chain, the fact that microchips and things, and technologies of the future, 5G, Huawei, or the chips that Taiwan produces, and all of this is very, very critical for future security of the world. And this is an area where Taiwan has been brilliant and has enormous amount to offer. The civic tech community and what Audrey Tong and the GovZero people, the volunteers, the citizens of Taiwan, frankly, you have been a model for the United States as we deal with our own problems of our elections and our democracy. What we see your citizens have done and how you think about this is inspiring, to be honest.
So I know that you actually did a documentary, Canary and the Digital Gold Mine, about Taiwan's fight against disinformation after our elections. Can you tell us why you wanted to do that documentary and in Taiwan?
Well, I was thrilled that we did that. We were watching from afar of what the civic tech community, the volunteer community, and Audrey and the rest were doing in Taiwan, and we wanted to share that with the world. I wanted to capture it and make sure. And video is the way you want to do things nowadays, because people can watch video more easily than anything else now online and on their phones. We just knew it was a great story, and we didn't simply want to do it in writing. And it's a quick sort of 9 to 10 minute. I encourage all your viewers to go on the ndi.org website or go online. I'm sure it's on YouTube, Canary in a Coal Mine, about Taiwan civic tech community. It's just, I think it's a great story, and people can learn from it. We wanted to show it at some international gatherings of the tech community. We still do. We still push it out. Look, Taiwan has a lot to offer. Taiwan is isolated in some ways because it can't get into some international organizations that are afraid of China. But there's still ways that we can help shine a light on Taiwan and to demonstrate what Taiwan has to offer. And in that way, I hope it also protects Taiwan, and it creates more attention in the world to this gem that is in East Asia.
We appreciate that, the fact that you noticed Taiwan and are highlighting us. You also mentioned that, the elections in the U.S., I'm curious, your thoughts and perspective on what's going on right now in the U.S.
Well, I speak in my personal capacity. I mean, as NDI, we don't work on American democracy. We focus purely on international democracy overseas. There are plenty of other organizations in the United States that focus on the challenges in the United States. And look, what we say everywhere, NDI, we say, is that democracy is hard. Democracy is always a work in progress. Those watching from Taiwan who are frustrated in Taiwan over whatever, remember that democracy is never done, and it isn't easy, and it's a constant fight. And we've never said as NDI that the United States has it perfect. We've had racial problems, we've had divisions in our society, and we're seeing a lot of the dynamics in the United States that we see around the world: rural-urban divides and disparities of wealth and divisions and problems of information, that different people get their information from different sources and it may not be factual. There's the impact of disinformation, both from within and from outside the country. And we saw all of that in our election, and it's put a lot of stress on the country, as well as the way that things have been handled post-election. There's a lot of questioning. It's been a challenge to our system and our institutions, but I think everybody needs to watch this and recognize that our system is holding on a bipartisan basis, Democrats and Republicans at local levels, or election officials or state officials or vote counters or whatever it is. And certainly the American people came out in record numbers to vote, and their votes are being counted. Some things are being challenged in courts, fine. they're being dismissed because there's not evidence, and the system is holding. And democracy is the best system to make, to either sustain what you've got if you like it, or to make peaceful change if you don't like where your country is going. The alternative is unacceptable. So as difficult and messy as democracy can be, it still is the best form of government. And the challenge for all of us is simply to strengthen it, not to bemoan its problems.
So, Derek, it is good to talk to you because, after the U.S. election, people in Taiwan are a bit nervous about, the incoming president. They don't know if U.S.-Taiwan ties are going to change or not. What is your take? Do you think that they'll continue to go strong, or they may change in some way?
I've watched some of the commentary from Taiwan and the nervousness, and I
Right.
have to say, what you notice, yeah. But Democrats, I find they sometimes get a bad rap about not being strong enough on certain things, and so in Taiwan or in Japan there can be or elsewhere in Asia there's a little
I don't.
nervousness.
Yeah, I don't think we mean it personally. I think that just
Yeah,
there have been some high-profile Republicans have been very staunch supporters of Taiwan, so people notice that. Nothing against the
right.
Democrats, I think.
No, I know, and I don't take it personally, but I do notice it's about that. But no, I think, I feel very strongly that there's going to be a strong commitment, an equal commitment, an enhanced commitment to Asia specifically. There's a recognition. I mean, the people can fault the Obama administration on how it implemented the so-called pivot, but it demonstrated that folks recognize the critical importance of Asia. And traditionally, where the United States is focused on Europe or the Middle East or Russia or something, there is a recognition that Asia is a center to get the world right and the center of activity now. And I think the Biden administration will have a similar approach. Look, everyone is focused domestically. We were going to have to be focused domestically because of COVID for a
Definitely.
time and economic challenges. That's simply the way it may be. But I'm very confident that a Biden administration is going to be very strongly focused and strong generally in Asia, and be, as I said, clear-eyed about the challenge from China, as well as the desire, and I think it's good for Taiwan, there not be blind hostility between the United States and China. That doesn't help Taiwan. We
Right.
shouldn't be
That's
fighting,
true. Makes us nervous.
because that can also incite China to do things because they have to pound their chest and create tensions for Taiwan. So I think what we need to do is be in very close touch with the government in Taipei, be understanding of the position, the sensitive position of Taiwan, and not do anything to make it harder on you simply because we want to pound our chest and demonstrate we're tough on China. I think we can walk and chew gum, be tough on the China challenge, be stalwart in our values and our commitments, but also recognize that our partners have interests as well, and we should be sensitive to those. And I really feel strongly that the people that will be in a Biden administration will be sensitive to that, to all of that.
Well, that's great to know, and we really look forward to seeing what the Biden administration will do for U.S.-Taiwan ties. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for your time, Derek.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you so much.